Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Score podcast. And one of us on this show is very happy because their team are NBA champions. Josh, how does it feel to finally get that trophy in Oklahoma City?
It's fire. I ordered the stuff when I was with you, and I was hoping it would come for today, like to have the shirt, but should have it for next week.
Well, it was really
Hopefully,
great because I was actually up in New York this past weekend and we got to watch Game 7 together. And it was a special moment because it's the first time in their short existence, 17 years, they win a championship. And it's for my boy and his team. And it was a great way to be able to watch that. It was a close first half. The Pacers were up by one. And then, the second half was a different story. So doesn't matter who was on that court, who wasn't on that court. The point is the Oklahoma City Thunder, the best team in the NBA with the MVP of the season, won the championship. Well deserved, and kudos to them. They're odds-on favorite to do it again. So anyone on that team you want to really shout out for an exceptional performance that they had?
obviously the MVP of the season of the Western Conference Finals and of the finals is an obvious one, but I really think that Alex Caruso deserves some love. He's someone that there were games that it seemed like the guys were maybe not 100% ready, maybe not 100% there, and the veteran know-how, the experience winning a championship. Even though it was funny, he was quoted saying that now this one's real. People can stop giving me flack for it because it was in the bubble when he won, but it's hard regardless. And I thought the bubble. I gave credit to the bubble because whatever, we don't care about that right now. We're OKC,
Well, we got to
but
shout out Alex Caruso because at 31
100%.
years old, he was the oldest player on the team and was referred to as grandpa of the team.
They were so funny about it.
And also, we had, I think it was Jalen Williams or maybe it was Cason Wallace who said he never played with a bald guy before on his team before. That was absolutely hilarious because Alex Caruso responded with, "You're 22 years old. Of course you never play with someone bald on your team. You play with a bunch of young guys who have a lot of hair on their team, on their head." So that
Jason
was pretty
Wallace.
funny.
Jason Wallace doesn't talk much, but whenever he does, he's absolutely hysterical.
Well, what was hysterical was I think it was Aaron Wiggins when they won the championship. What he said on the stage when they won the championship
That was
was, well,
amazing.
not only was it inspiring, but it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah,
Also letting everyone know that half that team didn't drink any alcohol up until
yeah.
they won the championship, including Jalen Williams, the
J-Dub.
Western Conference MVP. He had not had a drink until he won, and he said to the teammates that, listen, if we win a championship, I'll drink. And then they got closer throughout the season. It was looking like they were really going to get there, and he was like, okay, I have to get ready for this. And he got there, and he's like, I did not like it. And he's like, I'm retiring. But he didn't say he's retiring from drinking. He just said, I'm retiring. And I almost wanted to comment like, dude, you got to clarify what you're retiring from here, because I don't think a lot of Thunder fans would be happy to see you retiring at this point. Imagine you win a
Yeah.
championship at 22 years old, and you're like, you know what? I call it. I'm done. What else do I got to do? That's it, and retire.
That kind of reminds me of that awesome Islanders player that like scored 35 goals in a year and then just retired. I think it was Bossy.
Yeah,
He
my
said that he
Islander
said that
history
wasn't
isn't going
that
to be.
wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. It was like a great season, but he was like a 50 goal scorer and he scored like 35 and he's like, obviously I'm getting worse, and he retired.
Well, I mean, that you could respect a little bit. When you're like, all right, it's time. I'm declining. It's time to call it. And some of the greats do that too, but they still go out on a high note. I mean, it's still, you have great seasons and you end on a great season. But I mean, the Thunder up and down were a complete team. You got to give a lot of respect to the Pacers. Fantastic team, and honestly, well deserved. They were the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they were the second best team in the NBA. And I think they would have beaten any other team in that Western Conference if it wasn't for the Thunder, because they played so well. Even losing Tyrese Halliburton, I think they would have beaten any other team in that second half. Just the way they played, so smooth, offensively, defensively, transition. So I mean, even next season, it's sad that Tyrese won't be around. They're going to have a good year, and they're probably going to build around some of the guys that they have. They're going to hope to retain some of the guys that they have, Benedict Mathurin and Naismith and Nemhard, probably extend as
Do
many of
they
the
get
guys
any
that they can.
money? They get any cap money to use? I don't really remember how that works. Like, do they get?
I'm certain they will, considering that he's going to miss the whole season realistically.
Yeah.
There's going to be probably some exception where they're going to be able to spend some more money on there. Another thing I wanted to really mention, which was a crazy stat that I saw, was we had three players in the playoffs this year tear their ACL, tear their Achilles, and they were all wearing number 0. Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum. That's
Wow,
just insane.
Damian Lillard was in the playoffs. That feels like it was so long ago.
It was so long ago. It was when the Pacers bounced him in the first round, and he went down. I think it was like game 3 or 4. It was really sad, but he was the first one to go down. Then Tatum went down against the Knicks, and obviously Tyrese in Game 7. We saw what happened there. It was really weird, and I think I don't know if this is also true, but I did hear recently that they were all 3 of them were also wearing pink sneakers. So if that's the case, that's really really weird. But it's a sad part of the NBA. So when you see things like this happen, especially with these top tier teams, like the Celtics just lost their best player, the Pacers just lost their best player, and the Bucks just lost their top 2 player and potentially their best player if they end up losing Giannis and trade him away. A lot of these teams are starting to make a lot of moves, and we're seeing that happen. I mean, it seems like the Celtics are automatically ready to go, and they're sellers. I mean, they just shipped off KP, they shipped off Drew Holiday, and the return that they got really was more of showing that they just wanted to get rid of these contracts instead of really getting a lot of talent back. I mean, obviously, Anthony Simons is a talented player, but this team is not better than they were, considering the Tatum injury. Yesterday than they were a couple of days ago than they were today. I don't know how you feel about these trades, but one of the big ones were, a couple of the big ones involved the Celtics. A lot of these players are starting to get shifted around. I think it's, they're seeing what's happening in the NBA right now with the Thunder and the Pacers. These teams, the way that they're winning, and it might not necessarily mean stack up 2 to 3 superstars and just have a bunch of role players behind them, but actually try to build around a team that's going to play good together. So I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of trades. Celtics making a lot of moves, the Rockets, all these teams. So I mean, what do you really think? I know we still have a lot of offseason left, and there's going to be a lot more moves. But it's a crazy way to start the offseason. It's only been a few days.
Yeah, I think that I think it would be dramatic to say that like the game's going back to driving, but I think teams are realizing after seeing the Thunder that you really don't you need to play defense more than you need to hit your threes. And maybe the trades didn't exactly address that, but whether they're trying to make space to build a roster differently, driving to the basket is still the most effective way to get a bucket or draw a foul. High percentage shots. I'm sure you could give a whole lesson to our viewers about high percentage shots and what that means. I mean, it's pretty simple in saying, but like when you think about it, you say a three is worth 3 points, a two is worth 2 points, but what goes in more, and also what draws more fouls and what generates more points. But when you look at the whole scope of it, I think that there's a lot to come too. I think Jalen Brown will find a new home. I heard that the Raptors want Derek White. They'll give their number 9 pick and more. I know that that draft is tonight, so it'll be interesting to see if some more big pieces move. I mean, it's kind of silly to think about that the return that the Mavericks got for Luca, and even though the number 1 pick went to them, rigged or not, we don't got to get into that because that's you'll never really know. So you just got to assume that everything was done the right way, I guess. But when you look at it, what their return could have been, and the freaking Nuggets not GM, the Nuggets owner. Do you know that the Sun took over and now he said that certain things might cause them to trade Joker, which would be crazy. So the reason why I was saying Luka was kind of the segue that if there was a Nikola Jokic trade, I don't care if it was for 1 year of Jokic, it would be the biggest return ever. And that team would be an immediate championship contender because he's really been, ever since the championship year, it feels like he's been playing with scraps, respect to Jamal Murray. But like, besides that, I feel like these guys just are everyone, and there's no real fit around him. But I don't know if you want to get into that or you want to talk about the current trades more. But I think that these trades, I think the Celtics made it clear that missing all those threes in the playoffs, they feel like costed them. And they new ownership said they were to come in and make some changes. And Tatum getting hurt gave them the opportunity to completely reset and really look at this year as one where they can try and build a dynasty again, try and get young and keep up with the Thunder if that's even what's in mind. I don't even know if that's in mind, but it should be, because plus 240 to win the championship in June of the year before is kind of crazy.
Well, it's safe to say that the NBA landscape is ever evolving. I mean, we're seeing roster turnovers so quickly. You know, some of these guys are on a team for 2 years. Even the best players on the team, they're not staying very long. And it's not even about a loyalty thing. It's about the fact that is it a right fit at this point? They're
Yeah.
getting traded more than they're signing deals in free agency. So I mean, just looking at what the Celtics got or what they're doing, it's just, I mean, we could talk about the Nuggets and this and what's happening with Joker, but the truth is, the teams have to consider every single option, and I'm not saying that means trade Joker, but that means everything has to be on the table at all given times because the NBA is changing so often. And
Yeah.
unfortunately for the Nuggets, they don't have a roster over the next 2 years currently that's going to be able to compete for a championship unless they're adding, specific pieces that are going to help build around Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Now, Jamal Murray might be one of those pieces where you have to get rid of and get somebody around. But if that's the two pieces that you're going to build around, then you have to do a big rebuild around Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, and all those guys. But in terms of what the Celtics are doing, right? They just traded away Porzingis, they traded away Drew Holiday, and in return, Anthony Simons, Kelly Olynyk, uh, George Niang. I know. I mean, we know how that. You know how I feel about him, and especially going
Yeah.
back and wearing that green, and 3 second round picks. I mean, I feel like first of all they could have gotten a little bit more, but I
There's a
think it
lot
was
more.
more of just opening up salary so that they can go and get some of the guys that they want to sign in
Yeah.
free agency. They don't have Tatum for the season, or at least most of the season. He's not going to be there. I didn't hear anything about them looking to move Jalen Brown, but if they end up moving Jalen Brown, now you're talking about a team that's really starting from zero again. But they don't have
Mhm.
draft capital to really build around the draft, so they're opening up the salary cap so that they have the ability to build around the guy that's going to be missing all the next season, Jason Tatum, and then restart this roster that they feel like is no longer good enough to compete in the Eastern Conference because you have teams like the Pacers and the Cavs who are playing some great basketball. And you don't see those two teams making any moves just yet, but you're seeing teams like them. You're seeing, obviously, in the Western Conference making big moves happen. Houston trading for Kevin Durant. I mean, it was kind of inevitable that there was going to be a breakup between Phoenix and KD, um, even though their ownership said last season that they have a team that can win multiple championships over the next couple of years. That turned out real well. And Kevin Durant is now a Houston Rocket. I don't personally think they're a much better team. Frankly, they gave up Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks a lot of personality, the 10th overall pick and 5 second round picks. But
Yeah.
Kevin Durant hasn't really been the guy who gets you over the hump.
Yeah.
So I'm not taking away the greatness that Kevin Durant is, but with all these moves that are happening, it's just what I wonder where these teams expect to be with all these moves happening. Start of the season, do they really feel like they're going to be making moves for just this season, or are they building for a long-term future? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because their team, like I said, the Pacers and the Cavs, they're set. They have their core. They know their guys. They're not going to be making major moves. They're going to just try to retain the guys that they have. But these other teams are now trying to revamp, and the Thunder as well, too, obviously. Thunder are one of those teams that people are going to try to build around to beat these teams. So do they feel like it's going to be short term? Can we beat them just this year? Or are we building for the long term? And I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see what's going to happen. I'm curious to think what you think is happening with this ever changing landscape in the NBA.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think that their teams are starting to realize the bench is really important, especially if someone gets hurt with 3 major injuries in the playoffs. You gotta have someone ready, even if they're not as much of a rotation guy as TJ McConnell was, which I thought he was the best point guard on the team for the series. Not saying that, like, 2K rating would be higher or that he had a better season overall, but just in those finals, um, PJ McConnell played better, and it makes sense because the grit, the that type of thing is how you get under our skin and how you beat us at your own house. At our house, you don't really beat us.
I,
So
I, I, I definitely argue with you on the fact that, TJ McCall had a great series, but Tyrese won them game one single handedly, essentially, with that game winning shot. They had no lead. And then his presence on the court was way too much for a lot of times for the Thunder to deal with. Now, TJ McConnell made some crazy shots, and he is a good player, and he's going to get a nice extension. But I wouldn't say he was better than Tyrese on that court. I mean, no Tyrese, they don't get there.
No, I'm saying from when the final started. I'm not saying this anything before this series, but I think this series,
But without Tyrese, they don't get to game 7. That's for sure.
I mean, maybe I don't know. They didn't have whatever. I don't. It doesn't really matter because he with Tyrese in Game 7. I mean, he came out hot, but he never came out hot like that in the other series. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened because you adjust to the game plan as you need to, and people want to try and take the credibility away, which I know you're not doing. I'm just saying. I think that you have Tyrese, you have TJ McConnell, you have Chris Paul, you have anyone, you throw any random point guard in there, I still think that that would have been the result. But I know that's not the point. But the point is, I think that just in terms of all the stuff off the stat sheet, everything was TJ McConnell. Just the stuff like bringing the team back when they, besides that one shot, I feel like everything energy was TJ McConnell. Besides the game-winning shot, which fine, that was a very big shot. He's not a bad player. I wouldn't sit here and say Tyrese isn't a star in this league after the way he performed these playoffs, but that doesn't mean that certain times you got to just rub have some elbow grease and get dirty to be an impactful player. That's why I give my props to Caruso because he was doing the same sort of things, and I think that that's really important for winning a championship or winning 3 games in the finals.
You know, that series went 7 games, and I think it was a team effort. It wasn't just one individual on either side that really said, I'm going to do everything I have to get them done. Maybe other than SGA, but it was Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren on the Thunder side as well that were having big performances at certain times. And it was about stepping up in times that
Yeah.
when not your best player is going or when everyone else is down, let me step up. And Benedict Mathurin had that time too in game 3, and he had 27 points. But Tyrese did that multiple times throughout the series. Siakam did that. You know, he was a presence on that court that it was very hard to stop him at times.
They were
Now,
trying to call Siakam the Thunder Taker if they beat us in Game
well, you
7.
know what? It would have been something that probably would have stuck too because he's that type of player. And honestly,
I'm not gonna lie.
I'd rather
Okay.
have Pascal Siakam than Kevin Durant right now on my team.
Yeah. I
100%,
mean,
10 out of 10 times.
37-year-old Kevin Durant is not going to be 27-year-old Kevin Durant. So I think that the Suns won the trade, but that doesn't mean that the Rockets can't be a good team. I just think to be able to get a guy like Jalen Green and a guy like Dylan Brooks that completely changes the culture of a team that really had no heart. I think that that's going to be something that's amazing for
Well, the
the
Suns have a big
Suns, and I
problem.
think that
They got 5 shooting guards on their team.
yeah, but I mean,
That's
you
it.
could really start. I feel like you could really play book at the point. I mean, you not
I've heard
necessarily
that Jalen Green
ideal.
might get traded from Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't think that's a crazy take, but it's just I think that if you go into the season with um Book at the 1, Green at the 2, or any of Green or Brooks at the 2 and the 3, I think that 3 is
So
fine.
so you
I
ship
think
off Bradley Beal.
100%. And I don't think that I think he needs to be somewhere that he's giving 15, 20 minutes a game, and he's a part of a team that can do something in the playoffs because he's never really had that in his career. I don't even know if he's ever played in the playoffs, but he's been a great player. But I think that at this point, I think too much of a workload is just too much for his body. And I always liked his game, but for being as high paid as he is, I think that it's tough to not give him a huge role. But in reality, if you get 20 minutes a game from him for a season, then in the playoffs, if he's cooking, you can leave him in, and he won't have as much wear and tear on him.
Well, here's the
And it could be
problem. No team is going to pay. No team is going to take on that contract and play him only 20 minutes a game. He's getting
yeah,
paid a
no,
lot of money. So how does Phoenix unload that player in a deal that makes sense for everybody involved? Let's just try to see if there's a way to get it done. What would they have
yeah.
to do or sacrifice in order to move Bradley Beal in that contract
Well,
for
you could
for a
look at
team
some
that's going
other
to take him for 20 minutes a game?
yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly 20 minutes, but that's what I would do personally. But I mean, you could look at guys like Michael Porter Jr., who's obviously he's not $50 million a year, but he's north of 30. So if you can trade Porter and another 15-20 million dollar contract, I feel like you can get something, like you can get something of youth or a future pick that you can use down the line, and then have Bradley Beal just kind of be the role. He can be a role player, and then you can use the asset down the line in the future.
Well, I think if you,
Something like that.
if Bradley Beal is getting traded to Denver in a deal that involves Michael Porter, it'll probably involve Aaron Gordon as well, and then I think he would slot in as a starting shooting guard there and play probably 30 minutes a game, which is fine. Let's remove the time barrier on this, right? He could get traded anywhere. It's just about taking on that contract.
Yeah, I mean the
The
load management too.
Nuggets really gonna get rid of those two guys for Bradley Beal at this point, though. Is I mean, I get it. Maybe you're just trying to make an example out of it, but I'm just trying to emphasize I don't think it's going to be as easy as Phoenix wanting to just move Bradley Beal very easily because there's not going to be teams lined up to take on someone who is getting paid $45 million a year and is not worth 25 million, or maybe he's worth 25 million but he's not really worth much more than that.
Yeah, I mean Gordon. I was just looking. It's he's got 3 years at an average salary of 34. So I don't think you'd really be able to move them together. But maybe if you could probably offload Beal and and then also you have to, like, it would be you would get it would be Beal, and you would give the first to get Aaron Gordon, for example, to take $15 million off the books.
Right.
And
Well, does Denver have the space to take that on?
it's a great question. But
Well,
I'm just saying,
we don't have to look up if they have the availability. I don't think they
yeah,
actually have the availability. But the point is, I think if a deal is going to be made, it's going to be structured around Phoenix having to send a first round pick with Bradley
right,
Beal in
for
order to
sure.
get the deal done. Could very well happen. I mean, if they end up moving Jalen Green, then maybe they don't move Bradley Beal, but they probably should because he's
Yeah,
getting paid a lot. And, I don't know what type of role he's going to end up commanding over the next year, but it'll be interesting to see what, that team does with there are so many guards that they have. They just got rid of
yeah, for sure.
obviously KD, and they're just a team full of shooting guards. And I saw a funny video where someone said the Suns are doing something very unique. They're assembling the greatest shooting guard team in the NBA. They're just stacking up one position, and that's all they're focusing on. Nothing else. They couldn't care less about the point guard and the center and the power forwards. Whatever the
Yeah,
case is, I don't know what's happening in Phoenix. They're a big disaster. Yes, Houston is a better team, sure, but I don't know if they're a team that's going to win the championship just because they have Kevin Durant right now. A good team, probably will be a playoff team, but we'll have to just see where they end up kind of trending
yeah,
towards. It's going to be a lot more trades. I mean, we're talking about the first week of the offseason here, and we're seeing a bunch of big moves happening. We even saw a move
hmm
during the finals that happened where we saw Desmond Bain go from Memphis to Orlando
love it.
in a
I
deal
love it.
that sent 5 first-round picks to Memphis. That was a
I love
crazy
that
deal, and I
so
don't want to
much.
really get into a deal that happened a couple of weeks ago, but just kind of looking at like Kevin Durant getting traded for the 10th overall pick in a bunch of seconds, it's really weird what's happening, and it's really weird where teams are valuing certain players, and I think it's around the fact that, listen, if you're getting paid less but you're a quality player, we'll give up more for, and we kind of saw that with Mikal Bridges last season, what the Knicks gave up to get him to Brooklyn. So that could happen very much so with these guys that are, on the cusp of becoming great, but not just there yet, and they have enticing contracts. So, they'll give up a lot to get them and then hope that this player turns into what they expect them to be. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot in the NBA.
How the hell did Jalen Suggs get a 5 year, $150 million deal?
Wow, did that just happen?
It says the rookie extension for him. It says here that it was what,
Jalen, so Orlando
yeah,
extended it.
October
Oh no,
21st.
he was in that deal. He was in that deal to Memphis.
No, no, no. I'm looking at the Magic just because when you brought up Bane, I really like that move, and I was
5
seeing
years,
what else they could do.
150 for Suggs, huh?
But like, is he like that?
I mean, I think he's a good player. He's a good defensive stopper, but wow. I mean, all these guys are getting paid some crazy money. I think Orlando
Yeah.
had the money and they probably said, let's lock him up. But he's a starting shooting guard there. I don't know if he's going to still be the starting shooting guard with Desmond Bain there. We'll have to just see how that ends up playing out. Unless they move Paolo to the 4 and Desmond Bain to 3, which I
Fellow
guess
is
could
6'10",
happen.
so
Huh?
Pelo being 6'10" definitely helps that
Right,
vision.
but then you have, you're running Franz at the center, and I don't know if they that means they just don't have a true center out there. Could happen. I don't know who
Well,
knows
no,
how the NBA
you'd
landscape's
probably
going.
run Franz at the point just because of his passing skill. I know, not necessarily defensively that doesn't line up, but he's probably him or Bain are the two would be the two best passers on the team, so they'd probably
You're saying
that
Franz
just
would be
makes
the point
sense.
guard?
Or he'd be like a point forward. Like he'd line up defensively with a forward, but he'd really bring the ball up. Or Bain's very capable to bring the ball up too. Maybe Suggs would be the guard, the better of the guards, but Franz would be like a point forward who brings the ball up, or Bain will bring the ball up, and then they'll like that can work.
Yeah, no,
And
it
I
could
think
definitely work, but I guess then, maybe Wendell Carter's their center. Who knows? I mean, I think that team is going to be a good team. I think Orlando should be a team that's going to be trending up. That Desmond Bain move, yes, they gave up a lot, but they're a much better team now than I think they were last season. That's the type of player that's going to get them, I think, at least into the next mix of playoff rounds. So we'll have to just see. Interesting. A lot of playoff talk, a lot of offseason talk, a lot of trade talk. Basketball's over though, and I mean, unless we have some major breaking news that happens, we're probably not going to be talking a lot about basketball over the next few months. And just hope that next season our teams are ready to go. And if
yeah,
anything happens with the Thunder and the Cavs, you guys will definitely hear about that because we love talking about those two teams. It's just most likely not. Our teams are pretty set for the future, so we probably won't see a lot of major moves coming from our teams. But I did have a question I wanted to ask you to kind of wrap up our basketball.
sure.
Who would you say is the most underrated player in not only just current NBA, but in the history of the NBA?
Underrated. Mm,
It could be someone who's retired too.
underrated. Probably. I mean, my heart says Westbrook, but my head says probably. I always thought that I always felt one guy that never got the love he deserved. But it's weird because people always like him, but he never. I don't think he truly people truly understand how great he is. Is D Wade? I
Wow.
don't think that. I think that he was always amazing, but whenever I maybe it's because people really who followed LeBron really were like, "Oh, LeBron and Wade." But before that, he was a dog and he wasn't getting the love. And you could also say the same thing about Tracy McGrady. I feel like he was very underrated and he was incredible at what he did. But I d- besides that, those my heart and my head. What who would you say?
Well, I actually like the Dwayne Wade answer, and I agree. Tracy McGrady is definitely underrated, but I like Dwayne Wade for the fact that he was obviously an NBA champion before LeBron even got there. So he
Yeah.
definitely did his own thing, and he's a great shooting guard, and he's the third best shooting guard in the history of the NBA, hands down, no questions asked.
Shout out to D Wade, South Florida. Pull up. Harry's got a seat.
We got multiple seats if you want to bring, even if you want to bring the whole family, come through. Wade family, Union family, all of you guys come through. But if I had to say, it's probably going to be a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say this, but some people are like, "What are you talking about? How could you even say that?" The most underrated player in the history of the NBA. It's none other than the GOAT himself, LeBron James. And I'll tell you why I believe LeBron James is the most underrated player in the NBA. I think he's definitively the best player to ever play basketball, but people sometimes think not the case, and they say Jordan's better. Now I get it; it's all an opinion and how you feel and where you grew up and what era it was and what you saw, things like
And what
that.
you appreciate in the game
But
too.
I've had too many conversations with people who support Jordan over LeBron that have agreed with me when I've said who wins in a basketball match, LeBron or Jordan, and they almost always say LeBron James. Now that's one part of a whole entire conversation to be had. You're talking about the greatness is one thing. I'm talking about the greatest basketball player to ever play basketball, right? LeBron James.
Sure.
And people don't give him that credit. People say, top five. There's people who say he's top five. There's a lot of people who say he's number two to Jordan. There's a decent amount of people who say he's number one. But the scenario is actually insane considering that there's so many people who don't even put him in like the top. There's some people who put him like fifth, sixth best. And I'm like, how do you do that? It's not even, he's the greatest player who's ever grasped a basketball in his hand. Just from his IQ to his overall accolades, to his overall performance in the playoffs, his numbers, the fact that he's been doing this for 20 years and he's been better now than he was 10 years ago, almost you could say. I mean, he's an incredible athlete, and I think a lot of people are gonna they take it for granted his greatness, and when he does call it a career, the NBA is gonna be very different at that point, and it's a lot of people are going to miss his presence on a basketball court. It's going to be very different. So that's why I go with LeBron. I think all your answers are. There's no right answer, obviously. This is all what we believe. But I liked all your answers too.
I
Dwayne
think it's better
Wade.
to say there's no wrong answer. I
There's no
think that's a
wrong
better way to
answer.
word
There's
it.
no wrong answer. There's just a bunch of opinions out there, which everything is at the end of the day. If you're going to debate somebody and have a conversation with them about who's the best or what you think, at the end of the day, it's all an opinion. Now, if you're going
Yeah.
to debate a stat, that's a different thing. That's obviously a stat or other things. But greatness and who's the best and all that stuff, it's just your opinion based on what you saw, what you witnessed, and what you believe to be true. And that's all it is. So we're gonna wrap up some basketball now, and we got to get into some baseball because the trade deadline's approaching. We got about 5 weeks until the deadline. That's the end of July, July 31st, and we kind of want to talk about some teams that could be looking to make some moves and some players that could be moved around the diamond, and from one league to the other league, very well could happen. Um, I can start if you want. I can go with my guys
Yeah, let's do
first.
it.
Um, so I thought about it, and I was looking at these teams. I'm like, where do they expect to be over the next 3 months? Right, just this season. Baltimore's done, but they have
Oh
a
yeah,
very
okay.
good bat that could help a lot of teams. And Seattle desperately needs a bat. Seattle, if they want to be able to compete with Houston in that division, they need to go get a bat. And Baltimore has the perfect bat for them. Ryan O'Hearn. Great lefty bat. He can mash righties. He's having a wonderful season in Baltimore on a team that everyone is lacking except for him. And Baltimore is going to be making a lot of moves this offseason, or I'm sorry, before this trade deadline. I think they're going to dish out most of these guys that are not part of their youth core, and that'll be Ryan O'Hearn. He's going to be end up moved, and I think Seattle's going to be knocking on their door first. And another move I think is going to happen. Starting pitcher currently plays in South Florida, in Miami, Sandy Alcantara. He's going to be gone. Miami is going to move him, and they're going to move him to the West. Arizona just lost Corbin Burns a couple of weeks ago, and they desperately need another starter. That team believes they could compete in that division. What they could
Yeah,
look forward to is when Corbin Burns is healthy, they'll have one of the best rotations in the National League. So if they
yeah.
make this move, it'll help them this season, but it'll also bolster their future. He's a cheap option because he's still under arbitration. Miami, we all know how they act with all these guys. They end up moving the best players because that's all they do. They just have them for a couple of years, and then they go and they try to go get more prospects. So I think that's what we'll end up seeing. I think Miami will send Alcantara to Arizona, and the final one I have, my former favorite, and I had a lot of love for him when he was a Yankee. But now he's a Red Sox. But I don't think he'll be a Red Sox for very long. Their current closer, Aroldis Chapman, I believe he's going to get traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. Jose Alvarado, 80-game suspension. They need a closer.
Yeah.
Chapman's having a great year. He's figured out his slider. It's probably the best it's ever been in his career. He still has a high 90s fastball that could hit 100 whenever he really wants it to get to. And I think Philadelphia, obviously being in that division with the Mets and the Braves, even though the Braves aren't really that great, but they somehow always beat the Mets. And the Phillies, I think, are going to now run away with that division, but they need that closer to at least get them through this portion of the stretch of, I don't know, 70 games that they're going to
But
have. And then I think even when Alvarado's back, they're going to have just two high caliber relievers at the back end of their rotation. So those are
mm,
my three moves. I think there's going to be a lot of moves that are happening, but those are the three that I think will happen sooner than later. And I'd love to hear your moves.
well, first, I think that that Chapman move is brilliant because also you think about the Mets and you think about Soto, Nimmo. They got a couple other lefties in there that if you have a if you have a guy like Chapman that can just neutralize those left-handed bats, it makes the guys like Lindor and Alonso much less. I don't want to say much less valuable because they're good players, but like if you can neutralize them in a situation like that, I think that just kills their confidence.
As much
But
as my love for Aroldis Chapman is not where it used to be, there's nothing more I'd love to see than him playing for the Phillies and striking out Juan Soto in the NLCS. If I see that, I will be very happy and I will thank him again. I'll say, Aroldis, good man, thank you. Now, when we play you in the World Series, hope to smack you around a little bit then.
is that your take? You think it's gonna be Phillies Yanks?
Um, I'm not making a take. I'm not. I'm just
Okay.
hoping. I'm just hoping our team gets there, and
In this hypothetical world,
I could
like in
see the
this
Phillies get
hypothetical,
there.
all
So
right?
yeah, exactly. We're not going to get into our World Series
Yeah,
predictions.
we'll
I
get
really
there.
don't want to talk about where I believe the Yankees are going to end up this season, right this second. So I'd love to hear your picks though, and see what's going to happen. I think you might even have a nice little one in there too. So let me hear them.
Yeah, so there's been the first one that I have is based on rumors that the Cubs have been kicking tires around their division looking for a pitcher, so I think that they'll land Mitch Keller. Not a not a guy that'll cost a ton in assets or money, but a guy who's solid and you know what you're gonna get. And honestly, on if you pitch him with every time the wind's blowing in, it'll be great because when he keeps the ball in the park, he's a really good pitcher. I do think that the Yankees addressed their bullpen with getting Kyle Finnegan and Jose Ferrer from the Nationals. Um, Jose Ferrer is a fascinating piece to me because I don't know how his ERA is 5 because I feel like every day somehow the Nationals game gets on my TV for one inning and it's always this guy pitching, always shutting people down. And I'm hoping that you bring that with Matt Blake to the Bronx and we have a real nasty lefty. And Kyle Finnegan's got that true 98-mile-an-hour sinker that really moves, that bowling ball, that a nice piece to add to the bullpen, nice adding a righty and a lefty, solidifying that. And I think that AJ Hinch brings in one of his old guns for the playoff run. I think you'll see Carlos Correa go to Detroit with with Minnesota kind of falling out, and honestly, with Royce Lewis being so injury prone and needing to find a place for him anyway when he comes back, I feel like Correa will go to the Tigers and play third base right next to Javi and Glaber. Man, what an infield that would have been a few years ago, right?
I was gonna say, first of all, I wanted to just point out the fact that you'll have an interleague trade right there between, or intra-league trade between the Twins and the Tigers over there. But yeah, a few years ago that would have been an insane infield, and now you look at him
Yeah.
like, I mean, Javi's having a resurgence here. Glaber's not playing terrible, and Correa's a solid player, but they're not at the level of where they were a few years ago. So
And then a number one pick at first base.
right, exactly. I mean,
Torkelson.
Spencer Torkelson. It's still a good team. They're playing really well. They have the best pitcher in the American League. So that team could very well make a move to try to help that offense. I do like those bullpen moves for the Yankees because you could never go wrong with adding to that bullpen, especially needing a lefty arm in there. And what Matt Blake does to any pitcher that walks through Yankee Stadium is it's kind of like magic. Or closest to you can get to magic is what he does to pitchers.
Agreed.
So I think I like those moves. Keller to the Cubs, yeah, they could use another starter too. I mean, it's not like you said, it's not one of those big blockbuster trades, but it could very well happen, and they can add another arm in that rotation and try to help things out a little bit. But I think there's gonna be a lot of moves. Um, Frankly, I don't know if the Yankees will only add just. I know that we're talking about seeing a third baseman getting traded to the
Yeah.
Yankees, but I wanted to also talk to you about something that I saw in last night's game that really didn't sit well with me.
Sure.
Jazz Chisholm is not playing the greatest baseball. Now, yes, over the last couple of weeks since coming back, he's been great. But
Yeah.
when I say not playing great baseball, I mean your antics, right? And I get
Mhm.
frustration. And I understand sometimes it gets a little too crazy with these umpires. I know it, right? And that was a terrible call. Terrible call,
Oh, egregious.
right? You walked away from that, and for the next half inning, you came back on that field. And regardless of the fact is of who was looking at who, you caused yourself to get thrown out in a late game situation and proceeded to bark from the dugout after you got thrown out. Not a good look. I'm not saying I am opposed to this guy now, but you need to straighten out. Somebody needs to have a conversation with Jazz Chisholm in that locker room and say, "Hey, I get it. You're an emotional. It's tough. It's a close game. It was a ridiculous call, but we can't have you get thrown out of a game. Because
Yeah,
do you see what happened after that?
yeah,
Peraza got hurt at third base, and obviously they had to put DJ at second base. And then they had Escara playing third. The guy looked scared to be out there because that's not his position. So that's
yeah,
the position you put your team ultimately. Yes, obviously the injury happened afterwards, but it's regardless of the point. If that never happened, then we could at least have, DJ go play third and you're at second base, or you go play third and DJ play second base, whatever the case is. And you put your team in that position. Ultimately, the Yankees lost that game. I'm not going to say directly was because of Jazz Chisholm, but indirectly, what he did on that field did not help that team, and they ended up losing that game in 11 innings. So I really hope whether it's Judge or Boone or someone in that front office or someone in that locker room has a conversation with Jazz saying, hey, man, we get it, but you can't go that far. This is the New York Yankees. We do things a certain way. Yes, you can show your frustration. Yes, you're going to get thrown out here and there for certain things, but don't let it get to that point. Don't look like a fool. And that's what he made himself look like last night. And there's a chance that he might even get suspended for a few games because of how he was proceeding to stay in that dugout and bark at the umpire.
yeah. I mean, for me, I have a pretty different opinion on the way it went down. The only thing that I really had a problem with was after the ejection was over, then going like continuing to go over and then barking from the dugout. But I actually thought that during the at bat, I felt like that was a time for Aaron Boone to step in. He was shielding Jazz from the umpire, but he wasn't saying a word. So if he had his back and was telling him that ball's at his ankles, Blue, and saying things like that, then Jazz could walk away and focus on the game. Now, you're a professional when you get back out there. I liked what he said where he said I spoke to Cap. We moved forward, but obviously he was still heated. And as a professional, you need to realize that um it's a close game. You clearly, after the way things went down, clearly things are clearly things need to be very careful going forward, but I really don't think that the umpire should be standing there with his arms crossed staring at a player who's just trying to go on just trying to field some ground balls. Now, if he says don't walk towards me, don't walk towards him. Talk about it. I think that the conversation that he had to the media, he could have had the same conversation after the game and said, I felt like that umpire was egging me to walk towards him or egging me to do something. But if he says don't towards me and you walk towards him, he doesn't know what you're going to do because you're supposed to be staying there fielding the ground balls. But I know he's saying, "Why are you looking at me?" But it can escalate from there. But the only thing I really had a problem with was once you take that step, you know your fate. And if you get tossed out from there, just take it and then deal with it another time. I don't think that everything afterwards was unnecessary, but I personally love Jazz for the passion, for the way he wears every at bat with such passion, and to feel like he has an at bat taken from him in a huge moment. It's something that doesn't sit well with him. And but with that being said, I do agree with you that there's a certain etiquette, regardless of what team you play for, that you need to go by. And getting fined for making a comment after the game is way different than potentially costing your costing your team a couple games. And also, who knows what would have happened when DJ came up in his spot, even though the bases were clear and there were two outs. You're a rally starter. You got speed. You can do mayhem. So there's a lot there's a lot we unpacked there, but I really think that I'm okay with it, except for once you get tossed, just wear it. You know when the umpire has those emotions that he's showing, that don't give in because he's looking for his moment of fame. He's You're the away team. He's gonna get feel good when the crowd, no matter what they say about if they if they do it to put on a show, no matter what they say, if you step towards him when he says don't step towards me, and he tosses you and he hears the cheers, he's gonna feel good about himself. And he's gonna maybe afterwards he won't, but in the moment he's gonna feel that's just part of part of the whole aura around baseball and the way things go.
I don't know. I think things could have been done a little differently. I mean, I get it that umpire was definitely no saint for sure, but sometimes you got to understand that these umpires, they will have a loose cannon. And you can't afford getting thrown out of a game, especially in late game situations. So I just hope that this doesn't happen. It's happened a couple of times also in the recent past. He's gotten thrown out of games. So I don't want to see this happening long term, because if he's looking to be an extension of this team, I think he's gonna have to first of all play better. I mean, he's playing better now, but overall, let's see how he does over 162 games. But he's gonna have to represent those pinstripes proudly and well. And maybe not proudly, because he could be proud of representing it, but he needs to represent it well. So we'll just see how that ends up going down. I do want to also another mention about what I didn't like about that game. I don't know any reason why Aaron Boone decided to take Rodon out of that game after 6 innings, after 83 pitches.
Because he has no feel. Ha, Jazz just homered. That's hysterical.
Well, he just heard me. He's like, all right, bet Yankee fan, see what happens now. Listen, Jazz is a great player, but he
Yeah.
needs to be consistent. He needs to stay on the field, and he needs to simmer down just a little bit on the antics. Overall, if he can do that, he'll be on this team. But he's got a year and a half left of arbitration. We'll see what type of an extension is going to end up looking like. But I mean, going back to that, Rodon. You said what about Rodon?
Boone has no feel for like the game, and it has come out that the Yankees don't believe in players getting hot and letting people, like, if they have a scheduled day off, to give them the day off. And honestly, the actions show that. So I think that that's a terrible mindset to have, and I think that they're a well-run organization in some ways, and with other ways they need to get with the times. But overall, I think that they need to really take a hard look at these analytics that they have, which it got them to the World Series last year, but it's not last year anymore, and things are starting to. Tampa's just a game back, and that's not okay. We're the Yankees. We got to step on people's throats, and we got to do it the right way.
Felt like it was a runaway a couple of weeks ago. Now it's a much closer race. That's what baseball does. It's 162 long games. And if
Yeah.
you slouch for any moment, teams will start catching up. But we'll bring you guys more baseball stuff as it comes. We do have a question from Matt. So, Ben, do us the honors of reading us Matt's question for this week.
Check 1 2. Can you guys hear me?
I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I am here to read Matt's question. So today, Matt. So Matt was in here last time. Oh wait, I gotta get on. Oh jeez, it's all right. Anyways, here is my question. Since I missed last week with some of the NCAA football players now making more in college than entering the draft, do you think the NFL will have to up the rookie minimums to avoid players just staying in college?
Good question as always. I feel like when it comes to stuff like this, it's really curious what these leagues do, because in reality, the NFL and college should be working together to make a system that works for everybody. But this NIL is throwing a whole loop through things. So, do I think that they'll have to? No, I feel like playing the NFL has its prestige, and maybe not what it once was, because whatever people believe or whatever money trumps that to them. But I think that they might still do it, but I don't think they need to, because I think that if you want to win a Super Bowl and you want to build that legacy, you're going to play in the NFL. But if you're just trying to play to build a life for you and a future family, or for your family you have already, then you might take the money now, and then not and then maybe you get some bad advice from people that don't think you'll make the league, or maybe you'll get good advice that they tell you, look, you're good, but you're playing at X school that doesn't produce prospects very often, and maybe you're special. You can put your name in the draft after, but get your bag. Make sure you take care of yourself, and then if the NFL is meant for you, it's meant for you. But if not, then then you're set for life way more than 90% of people, if not more. But the question being, do I think they have to? No. But do I think they will? Probably.
I don't think they have to, and I don't think they will because, I mean, you said it pretty well, right? Um, the NFL is his own prestige. Now, I think it could be good for a player to want to stay in college a couple of more years, develop a little bit more if they're going to make some more money too. Wonderful, but they'll develop more before they get into the NFL.
Yeah,
But to get to the NFL, you have to get to the NFL eventually. You're going to get paid more, right? The NFL shouldn't have to raise their minimums just because what is that? What are you going to tell me that nobody's going to join into the NFL? That's ridiculous. Players are going to still have to join the NFL, whether it's take a little bit less. They made enough, I think, for let's say 2 to 3 years of playing college football to say, okay, I could take a little bit less for the first 4 years of a rookie deal. I'm in the NFL now, and then eventually I'll make even more money. So if you understand that track record that's going to end up happening, then it shouldn't affect the NFL salaries because they still get paid a lot of money. I mean, if you're a first round pick, which what all these players strive to be, you're going to get a lot of money to get to play in the NFL. Yes, if you're a seventh round pick, it's a lot less, but I'll tell you right now, if you're a seventh round pick, you're not getting a ton of money in college anyways. So it's going to be
for
one of those
sure.
scenarios where it's going to be a preference on that player. Do they want to play a couple of years in the NFL, a couple of years in college, and then go to the NFL, or do they want to make all their money in the college and then it depends. But there's always going to be players coming into the NFL every single year, so I don't think that's going to affect less players getting drafted. So ultimately, no, I don't think it's going to affect the NFL having to raise their rookie deals at all.
Now,
Just
one thing,
hope they don't have to do what the Bengals are doing and making these weird clauses
yeah,
in there like crazy. Now I know some teams do that, but when you get a little egregious with it, you start affecting the continuity of your roster, and that's what's kind of happening over there. But that's a different topic.
for sure. And I think one thing that it might cause is if you're not a top five pick, you have some money. So you might, if you're projected to go eighth to, I'm just gonna pick a random team, eighth to Seattle, and you feel like you're a better pick going 12th to the Bears, you might say, all right, the projected slot is 500,000 less a year, but I've already made 7 million playing in college. I won't even visit with the seventh the seventh team because I'm going to really look for my fit. And then maybe players will start looking at it where, all right, if I'm going to the league after a couple years of making a couple $1 million, I'm really looking for that next contract. So I want to be a place that I fit, even if you're not like a quarterback or a wide receiver or a cornerback, you probably will be more likely to get that contract from a team that you're a really good fit and you get to play often and you get to play well and the team has success as opposed to just taking the getting picked eighth, which I think there's a whole different thing on that where
Well,
like
I kind of I wanted to get in on this because you're saying you're basically taking away the ability for teams to draft whoever they want because a player is going to say, "I don't think I'm a good fit," even though the organization thinks you're a good fit for that team. You, as the player, just don't think you're a good fit for that team. Most likely, it's not that you don't think you're a good fit for that team. You just probably don't want to play for that city, which is a completely different thing. So I
or
hope that doesn't happen because teams should have the ability to draft whoever they want. I
yeah,
mean, if you
and they
don't
do.
visit with that team, they can still draft you, and then you
Yeah.
have to go there. Now, is that likely going to happen? No, because if you don't visit that team, then that's not good. But could it happen? Yes. I mean, I don't know ultimately how that's going to end up playing out, but I hope players don't start saying, I'm not going to go visit there because I don't want to play there. I don't think I'm a good fit. Let the teams determine whether you're a good fit or not and hope that you get drafted higher and you get more money too. And then ultimately, it works out for your best interest. I think ultimately
Yeah.
that way. I mean, I want to hear what you think with that, and then we can kind of wrap up. But that's where I'm at
Yeah.
when it comes to players making decisions on where they're going to get drafted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like the principle of it, but I think that that's more likely to be something that comes up as an issue than the rookie minimums becoming an issue because if the money motive it's as simple as this, if the money motivates them, they're going to stick in college. And if the prospect of making big money and having their grandkids be set, then they're gonna go to the NFL as soon as possible. And it's not like they can go from high school anyway. So
Right.
it's really just 2 years. So let's say so yeah.
I mean, the difference is honestly for us, it feels like a few bucks because even if you got drafted 6th overall, you got drafted 10th overall. 6 overall on a 4-year deal is probably still getting you $20 million guaranteed, and then on a 10th overall, you're still probably at around like $15-16 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
So you're still, making millions of dollars over your 4 years in the NFL. And then you hope to make the big bucks right after that when signing a max extension or any type of large long-term deal. But it was a good question. I think ultimately I hope that doesn't happen with these players. And if the case is the NFL really they shouldn't have to raise their salaries. I don't think they will, but at the end of the day we never know what's going to end up happening. And if it does end up happening that way, we'll definitely bring it to you guys. But wanted to thank you guys for a great episode. We had a great one. Congratulations again, Josh and your Thunder, for being champions. It's a nice way to see the whole circle of that organization come through, and obviously getting to talk a little bit about the baseball and where some of these guys are going. Appreciate you, Matt, for that great question that you gave us, and always sticking around for giving us some great questions. Josh, can you let everybody know where they could find us and where they could watch and subscribe?
Absolutely. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and always check out that Instagram. We're getting better as we go.
And it's so bad that this happens because I had my yogiism right here, and then all of a sudden it just went away, and now I have to go find it again. But in the meantime, I just found it, so thank God. The other teams could make trouble for us if they win.
That's the Yogi 8. Because it's a fact, but it's not. It doesn't induce laughing.
They could make trouble for us if they win. They've already won. They've already won. He's talking about someone that they're playing currently.
I thought that was like,
leading up to a team. I get it. It could be. Listen, it's Yogi Berra. It's back in the 70s. He probably said
still
that.
A legend.
Who knows?
To get 8 out of 10 on a 8 out of 10 or better on a regular basis.
You haven't given him one less than that. But thank you guys again for tuning in. Yeah, that's true. He hasn't earned it. He's worth at least an 8. But thank you guys again for tuning into this week's episode of Beyond the Score podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next week. This is where Ben cues the music.